The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another Mission Minded. Keep your mission on your mind and your mission. He's Michael Coleman, Heart of Alabama Food Bank. They do wonderful work down there in the beautiful city of Montgomery, Alabama, 35 counties in the great state. We do a show called Bite by Bite, which airs right after this one on our TKR host of radio stations. So please make sure you listen to that as well, specific to Feeding America and the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. This is more of a business show. We got emails, my friend. First of all, you doing okay? Everything good?
Yeah, starting the day early with you, early recording, but I love it. That's when my juices are flowing the most.
I love it.
Early in the morning.
Well, let's get after it then. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Again, we got a lot of questions in here. I kind of go through I read about every one of them, but as long as I have something to do with business questions, and we've had a lot of great business questions, certainly with what's going on with Donald Trump and the tariffs and all those other things. So we'll rip through those. And if you've got one, info at TonyCurryRadio.net, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Here's one that is very interesting, and it applies to myself because I just mentioned before we started the show, my son who's got special needs, we had his IEP yesterday, and part of his progress is he employable? Jerry in Birmingham, Alabama has a business and wants to know if there are any benefits to employing individuals with special needs or who are challenged. I know Publix employs a lot of special needs kids to bag groceries like that. I think that's super wonderful because there's a lot of kids that are on the autism spectrum that maybe can't drive or can't usually do that. Are there any special benefits outside just doing God's work and doing service work there? And if you want to institute some type of special needs work as part of your business, you build widgets and like you want to help out a little bit. How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. But I will tell you, let's set aside just the obvious that, hey, it's a good thing to do to bless people. But there's some state, I would check in with the workforce development initiatives with the state, things like Easter seals, Goodwill Industries, those kind of things. Okay. They provide jobs, but they also are looking for people. The state vocational rehab, they have, if a business takes on somebody, almost like an apprenticeship program, they will pay for part of their salary for a certain amount of time. So what they're trying to do, obviously, is incentivize, because there's lots of businesses out there that care about it, care about people with special needs, but they also, depending on what those special needs are, it can be costly. It can increase the amount of supervision time. It can increase safety issues if somebody's working in a potentially dangerous area. But let me just give you one example here. I don't know if this falls up under vocational rehab. You'll get lots of things. When you think about special needs, lots of times our minds just drift to there's some mental challenges within individuals. But vocational rehab has all sorts of people. And one in particular, lots of times, are military people who have PTSD that just struggle to get back into the workforce. We had a guy come to us, and he was a leader. He was in the Army for 10 years, but had some, and I don't even know his history, but somebody who was already here suggested him, and he didn't know if he could come back into the workforce or not. So he said, look, he's willing to do anything just to test it. So we actually brought him in as custodian.
Okay.
And we just said, can you just come every day and just be in the environment and just see how you do? Well, it was very clear right away. I mean, he humbled himself. This has been a leader of troops, and he comes in to be our custodian. And every time I would walk out in the warehouse, I wasn't looking to see, but there he was. And I never found him not working. I mean, if he didn't have anything directly to do, he would be out there with a rag cleaning rails and racks and everything else. I mean, just going above and beyond. So then once we found out that he could do that, we moved him over into the customer service side, and he excelled at that. And now he's a manager.
Nice.
That handles all our outbound distribution, and he kills it. So lots of times it's people need a chance. Now, we have a business here, Chappie's Deli in Montgomery area. And David Baranko owns that, an incredible guy, has a heart for the community. He will hire special needs at times. And so he will hire people with Down syndrome, and he lets them work at the counter and help out. He has a place for them, a place for belonging, a place for community. And he knows he's not going to get as much tip out of some of those employees as he will. They again, have to require a little bit more supervision, but they're there every day. You're pouring into somebody's life. You're using your business as more than just a money-making endeavor. And so I really want to encourage you, but look into all the opportunities the state. I would go on to Alabama workforce development. I'm sure a Google search will produce all of those things, that the benefits of hiring people with special needs. But yeah, there's a lot of need, but a lot of great work that can be done. And you'll get an employee that appreciates you, loves you, and shows up every day to work with a good attitude.
There's no doubt. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. This is Mission Minded. He's Michael Coleman, CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Gentleman in Huntsville does not want me to use his name. He said he listens to the show every single week. He loves it. He said he had heard that Michael, speaking of you, had business with your ex-wife, and said he's in the he's in the throes of starting a business with his wife and does not want to start a business with his wife. She came up with the idea. Basically, it's about a 2-page email here. Basically, they both have a passion for something. They both can make money doing it. She's like, let's start a business. And he's like, okay, but he does not, he said, I love her, but I don't want to work with her all day long. And so he's trying to figure out how to go about dealing with this. Can you talk about how that works? Because it's a very legitimate question. Some people, there's a reason why some people love going to work, is so they can get away from their mate, and that's okay.
Man, my heart pours. I don't know who this gentleman is, but my heart.
He asked me not to use his name, so I was like, I know. Yeah,
I totally get it too. So let me explain. And I am going through a divorce. So the only reason when the idea, my wife had told me years ago, she said, I think I would love to run like a children's boutique or something like that. So when this boutique came up for sale, here's me trying to, appease her, but I knew that she had personal shortfalls, shortcomings that, and just in her personality and her attention to detail, that there was no way she could run a business. She didn't have the savvy. She was introverted, so she was not going to be good with customers. On and on and on. There were so many things that I knew would be a disaster. The only reason I agreed to do it was my daughter agreed to quit teaching and come do it with her. And we were going to pay my daughter as the manager. Mm-hmm. So she and my daughter could do it together. And that was a thing. And then my daughter is more outgoing and has a different perspective than my wife did. And so my wife she would be good about organizing and displaying, and those were her strengths. Mm-hmm. My daughter was more of, hey, get us on the internet and Shopify and doing all the technical stuff. And so they were able to pair that together. But after COVID hit and destroyed the business, because we had an interstate location, people were used to years from traveling down to the beach. They would stop that. Well, all that went away. And then we had to go to online only. And technology to my wife was like kryptonite to Superman. And it absolutely, I just said, this is going nowhere. She was telling me, I'm doing all I can. And I'm like, I got a list of 25 things you're not doing that you could be doing. She just didn't know what she didn't know. So let me save this guy a future divorce. It's better now to sit down in as unemotionally as you can and say, here are the qualities that I think need to be in a business partner. Like, first of all, he needs to start with his own strengths and weaknesses if he's going to explain this to her and say, okay, here's what I'm good at, and here's what I think I'm not as good at. And so if I'm going to go into business, I need somebody to offset my my bad qualities with their good qualities. And if she can't do that, that's an out right there, just to say, look, we may both be good at this, but nobody's good at this. And why go into a business if you know it's not likely to be successful? There's huge holes that need to be filled. The second thing is talk about your concern that being together all the time or doing something like that, and then the additional stress on the marriage. And all this is true. Additional stress on the marriage, and then it has the potential to destroy your personal relationship, that you're not going to be able to keep a personal relationship and your business relationship separated. Mm-hmm. And so for the sake of your marriage, you don't think it's a good idea. If she continues to insist on it, what I would do is then suggest that she put together a business plan to see how motivated she is. Because a lot of people fall in love with the idea. Same thing with nonprofits. Oh, God's calling me to start a nonprofit. They love the idea until they get in there and start having to do all the work. And then they're, So I would suggest that my wife, if she was just hell bent on going into business, I wouldn't agree to go into business. What I'd say is, I'm going to sit on the sidelines, but I'm going to advise, I'm going to coach, I'm going to be a part of it, but not formally. Mm-hmm. Let her put a business plan together, help guide her, help coach her, help support her. And if you both do it well, then you can give input, but I would let it be hers, let her own it, and you support it. That way, if it falls apart, it's not going to destroy your personal marriage, and you're not tied to it. In the event your marriage did end, you're not legally connected to it in any sort of way. So there's some safeguards to put into place.
And I wish that a marriage counselor, and again, I'm divorced too, and I look back at a lot of things and I go, man, we could have started marriage counseling 10 years ago. You don't start marriage counseling when times are tough. You should start it before times get tough, so times don't get tough. And I think you throw in the words marriage counselor, and everyone always like, oh man, they must have marital issues, blah, 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 blah. I would certainly think that would be something where hey, can we sit down, because we're going to be spending a lot of time together, and if this is what's going to fly. Let me throw this out, and you and I have a lot of similarities here. I was married for 17, 18 years. Like a lot of men down here in the South, I was the breadwinner. I was working. She was making more money than I was when we met. And I said, okay, we're getting a child. We're going to adopt a child. You're going to work or I'm going to work. Someone's got to stay home with the child. She's like, I want you to work. And I said, okay, because I wanted to work. I said, great. Yeah, I'll work. She was making $90,000 a year now. And I said, okay, well, you realize I'm going to have to bust my ass. So you understand, that I'm going to have to work. I'll be here. I'm going to be dad. And then we had another child. And so there comes a time when a woman stays home for a long period of time, and I see it all the time, and it's usually about 15, 16, 17 years, where a woman's maybe in her 40s, maybe even early 50s, and all of a sudden she starts seeing her life slip away, and she's like, you know what? I want to get back in the workforce. Yeah. Maybe she's got a degree. My wife had a master's degree. She wants to get into something. And then they start getting into, I want to open my own business. We see a lot of women and the guys, just to suffice her, they may not even be able to afford the small business, but the men will do the right thing. They want to make them happy. Show me your business idea. Sure. Let's go ahead and rent that place down at the back thing. They give you something to do. It's important that she, and she should have that. She should have that right to go back to work, to do that, as long as, you've got your role. Everything is in the house good. It's not going to change the way I do things, because I do my travel and everything. If all of a sudden your laundry's not getting done, you're going to have a problem, because, she's been doing it for 17 years. And all of a sudden, well, I'm tired. Well, okay, we need to discuss this. We need to have a sit down. We need to hire a maid or something like that. But they get into either, I'm you can tell that I've been through this. It's either essential oils. They get into real estate. They start doing nails. It's this side job, this side hustle where they're trying to make some money. They start selling Kendra Cole, jewelry. They get into one of these things where they start and they well, I got a friend of mine. She makes $160,000 a year doing this stuff. I said, well, there's outliers in everything. There's outliers in everything. If you're approached with that situation, guys are dumb. I mean, I'm just here to tell you, we're okay. If you're happy, I'm happy. That my underwear is clean. I have a nice dinner every night, and we're going to the beach every year, and it's all good. Now, why the hell do you want to screw that up and go back to work? You don't have to go back to work. Well, yeah, they do. Can you just kind of basically describe you're a good businessman? And I already know the answers to this, but there's probably a guy out there right now who's got a 10, 8, a 6-year-old. And I'm just telling you, in about 5 or 6 years, she's going to come to you and she says, you know what? I'm tired of being home. I want to go out and work. I want to do something. And it's going to turn your world upside down. And you're not going to be able to tell her not to do it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So let's take your ex-wife, and she's somebody in marketing. And so you could make the argument, you stay out of the workforce 10 years and you try to come back into marketing. It's not that the marketing principles necessarily change, but it's how you execute those principles. Because when I first started, Shopify was out. This was in 2018, but now it's like, if you're going to have, and Shopify has, it's just blown the roof off. And there's so many, but technology gets further and further and further. So if you come in trying to do, stuff from 10 years ago, you are so out of the loop. So one of the things that, because my wife and my daughters are both teachers. And so one of the things, when she dropped out just for a couple of years out of the workforce, one of the things I encouraged her was, look, you need to stay current. You need to keep your stuff current. You need to show, in a lot of places, you have to show that you have continuing education credits. And there's tons of things that are free on the internet. So if you have somebody that that's going to want to do this at some time, you can really help them by encouraging them to continue their education, to stay updated, because that's going to make them more marketable. If somebody has a degree from marketing from 2005 and they're going into the workforce and they're like, you were in college 20 years ago. And they're like, yeah, but I spent the last 20 years raising my kids. They're going to be like, it's like you don't have a degree at all. Yeah. This is almost going to be of no value. But the other thing is, I actually encouraged my wife. Her gifting was not going into business. Her gifting was, she had some great storytelling ideas. And I encouraged her to write kids' books because she's a kindergarten teacher. But I couldn't get her to do the things and align her in ways that I thought. And so you're right. It comes down to what's your dream, what the individual person's dream is. But going back to our original call, look, I encourage people to go out on their own, but I think they need to have a realistic understanding and perspective of what they're going to face. And if they don't stay updated in their fields, then it's going to be a huge challenge. And especially, there always needs to be somebody. Look, I'm an idea guy. I love, you give me an idea and I'm like, I've told people, hey, you want to talk about how do we get food to Mars? And you're like, I don't know, but let's go have lunch and talk about it. I'll talk about anything. The answer is probably going to be we can't right now, but let's think it through. So somebody in a marriage has to be the objective viewer. And the problem is when your spouse gets excited about an idea, whether it's start your own business, I want to go back to work and do this. What they want is a cheerleader to say, yeah, go. That's you need to be that to some degree, but you also need to be an honest broker into saying, okay, I want you to be successful. So here's some glaring deficiencies, not character flaws, but just deficiencies. So don't just point them out, but try to create for your partner a pathway. Look, I've noticed that you haven't been back to school. Hey, I found some things here that could give you some continuing education credits that's going to strengthen your resume or whatever. And it shows that, hey, I'm pointing out the deficiencies, but I'm on board with supporting you and navigating this with you and going alongside of you. But if they don't, if they refuse those kind of things, man, spouse, I've just seen so many, as you get later, when you get empty nest syndrome and the spouse goes back to work and gets out of the home there's all sorts of challenges. So just do it with open eyes.
And I'm so glad I have a daughter, and I know you are too, because, a wife, a woman, everyone's got the right to change their mind at any time they want to. And
that's right.
And certainly, my ex is one of the smartest people I know. That's why I fell in love with her. She's so intellectual and she's classy and she's smart as a whip. She got her master's degree, and I was kind of like, wow, she got her master's degree. Now she's going to stay home, but that's what she wanted to do. And she was a great mother. And I kind of knew it was coming because eventually they'll go crazy. They want to get out and they want to. But I do think it's really important too, because my daughter, she's already talking about meeting a rich man. I'm like, I said, well, if she's 13, she turns 13, she just turned 13. I said, well, if you meet a rich man, you better make sure he's really rich, like he's filthy rich, because that stuff's going to be split both ways if things don't work out. But, and if you're happy not working a day of your life and you don't want to do that, that's great. That's super. Go for it. But just understand that you need to talk it out with your mate and understand that you guys got a plan and this is what your roles are and this is what my roles are. And because a lot of times those things start changing. And I know guys are going like, hey, wait a minute. I used to have a hot meal 5 days a week. And now all of a sudden you're telling me you got to work late. Well, what about me? And then she's like, and so it can open up a can. So great stuff.
100%.
Any other email questions, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Please send them. We'll get to them. We do them about once a month. And of course, any other business questions, Mission Minded. You can find our show wherever you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major industry out there. Just search Mission Minded with Michael Coleman. You can also look up HAFB, hashtag that, Heart of Alabama Food Bank. We also have a show called Bite by Bite, which is coming up here next. And of course, continue to listen right here on Tony Curry Radio. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Good day to you, my friend.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.